Reddit proxies. So proxies are, I feel like people overcomplicate proxies, but it is very simple, and that's why it says in-depth proxies, because lots of people say proxy this, proxy that, but they just don't know the basics of proxies, like even what a proxy is or what this is or what that is. So I'm gonna quickly break down proxies. All you need to know. I think a lot of people, like I said, overcomplicate it and also make it too narrow, and I'll explain what I mean by that also. So, firstly, if you don't actually know what a proxy is, then I don't know what you're doing, because everything you do, you need to actually understand what you're doing, why you're doing what it is. So, just to simplify it, what is a proxy? A proxy, all you need to see it as, is the middleman between your device and the internet. Instead of connecting directly to a website, your request goes through the proxy first. So, why do we use a proxy? Privacy hides your IP address. Access helps bypass blocked websites. Security helps protection against threats. And speed can make browsing faster by catching data. These are why people use proxies. But for example, within Reddit, why do we use it? To basically hide your IP address. Speed, it just depends on where you go to get your proxies. There are some proxies that are very, very slow, IP rail. But apart from that, and by the way, if you're still using IP rail, yeah, that's what I'm going to say for that. But hide your IP address, that's all you need it to do. Because Reddit detects if you've already had Reddits made on that IP address. If you've already had Reddits made on that IP address and you then make another one blocked, another one blocked, it will just continue to block because it can see that you've already made accounts and it can see that you're trying to spam accounts, right? So that's what a proxy is. There are many different types, but the main idea is that a proxy helps control, secure, or speed up your internet connection. And yeah, that's the basics of a proxy. So now you know what a proxy is. What are the main ones to use when starting up Reddit? This is specifically for Reddit. This isn't for Twitter. This isn't for Instagram. This isn't for whatever you're doing. This is for Reddit. Okay. So the main ones we use are static residential and mobile proxies. Like I've been saying in a lot of my videos, I feel like people narrow it down too much. What do I mean by that? I mean by sticking to one way and one way only. There are multiple ways it works. That's why what I do and what works for me is using multiple different types of proxies. I don't just use static residential. I don't just use mobile proxy. I use them both. I don't just use one country. I use a lot. So what is a static residential proxy? A static residential proxy is a real home internet IP that stays the same. So it's like your internet that you just have at home. It stays in the same location at all times and it doesn't move around. Residential means the IP comes from a real home, not a data center. Static means the IP doesn't change. Simple. It's basically your Wi-Fi box. That's what it is. It doesn't change at all. It's same location, same place, and that is what a static residential proxy is. A mobile proxy. What is a mobile proxy? Is a proxy that uses real mobile network IPs. So it's just the same as your data on your phone, 4G, 5G, assigned by cellular carriers. It basically routes your internet traffic through a mobile device, making it look like you're browsing from a smartphone. Rotating IPs, mobile network change IPs often, making tracking harder. So a mobile proxy is good because, like it says, it makes it seem like you're browsing through a phone. For Reddit, that is good because most people have Reddit on their phone. Some people go on their, maybe some weirdos that actually use Reddit go on their computer and use Reddit. But I presume that most people would use it from their phone, which basically would allow Reddit to trust you more because they can see that you're basically doing the same as everyone else. When you use static residential, this isn't saying that it doesn't work. I have many accounts on static residential proxies, but the trust score isn't as high because not as many people, I presume, use it on computer. but also rotates the IPs, so it makes tracking you down harder essentially. But again, that doesn't mean that mobile proxies are better than static residential. It doesn't mean static residential are better than mobile proxies. They both work and they're both good. Countries and providers. So I'll keep this very short. People overcomplicate this way too much again. Think outside the box. All I'm going to say is if everyone's using USA proxies, why would you be using USA proxies? Again, that's not to say they don't work. I have many accounts on USA proxies, but there are many other countries just as good as the USA that also work. That's all I'm going to say on that. Providers, again, I use many different providers. I don't have one set provider, so I can't give you my set provider. If you want a couple of the providers, I'll share them in the Telegram. However, I don't use one set provider and I'm always changing. Why? Because providers get saturated and many IP places reuse their IPs. Maybe it's nice and they have fresh IPs from the start, but then eventually, as more people use their provider, they start to reuse them and get lazy. So you always have to be on point with it and always changing this, that, and, that, and whatever. With providers, um, I use providers that everyone uses, any IP, all of them ones, but then I also use some ones that you probably never heard of. And reason for that is because, again, I test everything, and from experience, I have ones that work on all different providers. So there's not one set provider. And that's even saying IP Royale, surprisingly. I would never use IP Royale now, but I do have some accounts that are still on IP Royale proxies. So yeah, the last thing I'll just add to it is just certain things that, to be honest, I use this just to double check to see if the fraud score is high. But to be honest with you, I don't actually know if any of them are, like, in a sense, real, because my take on it is I've had accounts that have, over 100,000 followers, over 100,000 karma, and I'd never checked any of these. And one day I just check, fraud score is high, this is inconsistent, and this just goes really in depth. So I didn't even really look at that. But the account's still running, still working. So my take on it is, at the beginning, yes, now Reddit is such a strict platform, you want these to be clean. I'd say at least have this clean. This one is 50-50, I believe, but at least have this clean. But once your account gets to a certain level and all of that stuff, at the end of the day, Reddit trusts you enough. The proxy isn't really going to do anything. That's my take on it. You can take it how you want, but I've got accounts that prove this right. But yeah, you can use these. Again, I'll throw them in Telegram and they are helpful, but don't depend on them. Try it. Some have it all clean, some have it inconsistent, some this, some that. Just test it. So in conclusion, my take on Reddit proxies is just be open-minded. Trial everything at scale and don't expect one thing and one thing to work only. Marketing in general changes every minute, every hour, every day. So you can't expect the same thing to be working every day, every day, every day. It's always changing. Again, any questions and also updates on what I'm doing daily updates in my Telegram, so you can join that and keep up to date with that.